And J. Jones wrote by his own hands that what he wanted to do is piss on the graves of his political opponents. He was literally angry that a Republican had dare say something nice in remembrance of a Democrat. And that's when he started getting this exchange that he wanted to put 2 bullets in the head of Todd Gilbert. And for me, Sean, when he talked about hoping to see Jennifer Gilbert's children die in her arms, this was not some hypothetical person that lives, say, out in California. He's met Jennifer. She's come to the General Assembly. She would come all the time. He's seen those children. Todd would bring them to the General Assembly and they would run down the hallways. So this is a real flesh and blood mom and their children. And this idea that somebody that is seeking this job to get a promotion as the top prosecutor, I think that's why Virginians are reacting. I think you're seeing this shift because it is now becoming a much more a test of your judgment and your basic sense of decency. I don't think we've ever seen anything like it. And now obviously we have breaking news that happened yesterday that a special prosecutor has been appointed by a judge in New Kent County to look into how he misled the court in New Kent County over his 116 mile per hour reckless driving ticket.
All right, guys, we have made it through the work week. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's panel show. I had so much fun talking about the Dem meltdown. And by the way, I have a great rant coming this weekend, all about that when I have a little bit more time to go off on it. It is so epic. I mean, these guys are literally losing their minds over this thing. And maybe they should spend their time looking at the abomination that's the Obama library in Chicago. It's disgusting. I mean, I don't understand. You guys really want to be talking about construction and stuff? Look at what Trump's history of building great kind of good-looking things is versus what you're doing in Obama. It's unbelievable. But we are 10 days out from the Virginia Attorney General's race. Democrats, as you guys recall, were very excited about taking back all the offices in Virginia and winning New Jersey. And suddenly they're on their heels on all of them. And they're on their heels in Maine, too. This guy, Grant Platner, oh, my God, he's an opposition researcher's like dream. Every day there's like a racist thing, LGBTQ, and they're sticking by him. I said this on the morning meeting the other day, guys, but there's a through line, right? I talked about it a little on the panel, right? Think about this. You've got Mamdani, who's nuts. I mean, this guy cozying up to terrorists and terrorist sympathizers in New York. You've got J. Jones in Virginia, who's talking about putting bullets in people and killing cops and hoping that the kids of his political opponents die in their mom's arms. You got the guy in Maine, Grant Platner, who's talking about Nazis and tattoos and crazy stuff and offending everybody. And the Dems sort of are cool with it all. It's kind of funny. Everything's like an excuse. Yeah, well, that's different and that doesn't count. But anyway, I say all that because it's just funny how the Democratic Party of today is so different. You know, and this guy, Jay Jones, I know all the attention is on the text, but there's so much more. I'm going to ask the Attorney General, Jason Miyares, in just a moment. But there was a lot on this guy before and the text came out. Like, he is a really sketchy dude. He was in the state legislature a couple of years back, by the way, and randomly one day just resigns and says it's for family issues. And now suddenly he wants to run for statewide office again. Like, you couldn't be a delegate. You ran, and no one follows up, by the way. It's amazing how the media just pass. All right, we are now in day 24 of the government shutdown. Here's what was interesting about yesterday, though. And I actually think this was brilliant that they finally did this. I don't know why it took so long. It was like, hello, Ron Johnson, senator from Wisconsin, our buddy, he's on all the time, put a piece of legislation forward in the Senate that would have paid all active duty military and everybody else that's required to work. So-called essential workers, meaning if you're literally being forced to go to work, so air traffic controllers, TSA agents, border patrol, all that kind of stuff, plus active duty military, that we would pay you. Now, I thought to myself, wow, this is the flex point. Nope. 45 Democrats voted no. I honestly, I don't know. That takes some serious, well, you can guess. The idea that you're literally going to vote not to pay active duty military. And I saw some just chilling footage the last couple of days of these active duty military members, mostly I'm sure at the lower end, the enlisted ranks, who were standing in line waiting at food banks. This isn't a game. I know the Dems keep saying, oh, it's a political stunt. No, it's actually not. And the idea that you think so little of these guys not to pay them, I don't know. And by the way, the media, can you imagine if the Republicans weren't paying active duty service members? They'd be going nuts. But they're like, oh, well, we'll just give them a pass. It was unbelievable. I mean, we went from opening up the government and the Dems, oh, well, you got to talk about healthcare first, to now suddenly we're not even going to pay the troops. The guys who are doing this, who are deployed, who are on SNAP benefits, who can't, I mean, it's just insane. And there's no outrage. None. By the way, the big pressure point now, I think, is going to be this November 1st deadline. So there's what they call SNAP, like the food stamps, the debit cards, EBT cards that people at a certain level of income get to help supplement their income and their food. A lot of states are saying, hey, after November 1st, we can't pay anymore. Anyway, that's when I think the Democrats are going to start to hear, wow, this is a really bad thing. And then, by the way, after that, you have Thanksgiving. And there's just no way. So I just think this is unbelievable. Yesterday, by the way, I showed you guys this clip. Katherine Clark, who is the majority whip for the Democrats in the House, made this stupid comment about how Americans have to suffer with this reckless government shutdown. Let me play it for you here.
I mean, shutdowns are terrible. And of course, there will be, families that are going to suffer. We take that responsibility very seriously. But it is one of the few leveraged times we have.
Okay. Anyway, after that happens, Caroline Leavitt goes out on TV and says, quotes her. Okay, literally quotes her and says, this is Caroline. Whip Clark, that's her handle, the number 2 House Democrat, says, quote, of course there will be families that are going to suffer, but this is the one of the few pieces of leverage we have. That's a direct quote. You heard it, and that's what Caroline said. But then Clark goes on CNN and accuses her of lying. Lying, it's a direct quote. Take a look.
Well, that is right out of her playbook of half-truths, taking things out of context, and not being straight with the American people. And she knows what I said.
All right. But I'm going to bring in Jason Miyares real quick, some housekeeping for you. Next week, Chicks on the Writer here. John Solomon is back. We're going to get all the updates on the latest scandals and where they are and his investigations. And Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire is going to be with us as well. A big shout out, though, to Orchid Keeper? I said, right? I apologize. It's small on my screen here. Thank you for bringing on Congressman Ben Cline to talk about the shutdown in Virginia. It's good to know that someone in Congress is looking out for us, especially the farmer and cattle ranchers. Yes. It's a great conversation with Congressman Ben Cline. I appreciate him coming on. Always appreciate when you guys give us shout outs, by the way. So in the comments section, or you're on Apple or Spotify, which, by the way, I so love. Thank you for going on Apple and Spotify to give us shout outs, to subscribe, all of that stuff. It don't cost you nothing, right? To just do that. When you subscribe, it helps grow the show. So I appreciate it and gets those recommendations going. So anything you can do to help promote it, to send the links to people, to get them bought in on the show, to tell them that we're out here doing this stuff, that we're getting some censorship, shadow ban from big tech, is super helpful. And I appreciate it. Thank you. Our growth is entirely because of you. So thank you. Go to those audio platforms, Spotify, Apple, hit subscribe and give us a 5-star review because it happened. All right. Before I bring in Jason, guys, it's the weekend and I love cooking both on the grill and throwing some vegetables, put them in a frying pan. I love my omelets and eggs. And I'll tell you, up until, I don't know, probably a couple months ago, I would just do what a normal person does. I would take some olive oil, whatever, put it in the pan, then the eggs and whatever. And you start to realize it, but you're literally exposing your family in your own self to industrial byproducts when you cook in seed oils. And the thing is, I went down a rabbit hole on this and realized these seed oils were originally used as machine lubricants. Cotton oil. You know where that comes from? Canadian oil. Cotton oil. It's like what you start finding out when you go to research these things is crazy, but big food took over them and started saying that they were healthy alternatives to animal fat that we'd been using for generations because I think they were cheap and easy, whatever. But I'm telling you, once I realized that I had an alternative, these are golden aged fats. It's tallow. It's beef tallow. It is 100% American made, grass-fed tallow that brings back that wholesomeness in our cooking that our ancestors all swore by. It's packed with fat-soluble vitamins, minerals, and healthy fatty acids. It's awesome. Whether you're cooking chicken or vegetables, it doesn't matter. I've done all of it. I love this stuff. It has become part of my cooking routine now. It leaves you feeling lighter, more energized, satisfied, no bloating, no crashing. So all you have to do is go to goldenagefats.com, goldenagefats.com/Sean, S-E-A-N. Use code Sean for 25% off. That's goldenagefats.com/Sean and use code Sean. Before I bring in the Attorney General of Virginia, I got to tell you about another buddy of mine. If you've watched for a long time, you know who I'm talking about. My buddy Leo Grillo. He founded Delta Rescue after rescuing one dog that he named Delta, dedication, everlasting love to animals. And now Leo has made Delta Rescue into the world's largest no-kill sanctuary, not a shelter, a sanctuary. The thing about Delta Rescue that I've come to love, if you go on the deltarescue.org, you can see the videos. What he has done for dogs, cats, horses, you name it, that are abused, malnutritioned, neglected, abandoned. He takes them in. He cares for them for life. It's amazing. But the thing about Leo Grillo is that he's not looking for like big government grants. It's all through personal contributions. I made a personal contribution myself because I believe in what he is doing so much. If you can go to deltarescue.org and please help this mission, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, at the top, you'll see the estate planning kit guide. If you've got an old 401k or stock, you might want to talk to your financial advisor. You might even get a benefit now, but it will help make Delta Rescue an enduring mission. Go to deltarescue.org. All right, without further ado, I want to bring in the Attorney General of Virginia, Mr. Jason Miyares. Mr. Attorney General, welcome back to the show. Give us a state of play where this race stands right now.
Well, I mean, I think in the Attorney General's race, I think most Virginians are reacting with just disgust at the text messages that have emerged about Jay Jones. I've said before, this election now is just a test of decency. I can't imagine somebody running to be the top prosecutor in the state of Virginia, the Attorney General, like Jay Jones, who's never been a prosecutor a day in his life, and then also has advocated for violence, not just against his political opponent, but against their children, ages 2 and 5. And that's, Sean, I will be honest that when all this broke, part of what shocked me in all of this was I served in the House of Delegates with Todd and with Jay. Oh,
wait, hold on, just so everyone understands that. Todd is Todd Gilbert, the former Speaker of the House, who Jay Jones was having that text thread about with another delegate saying he wanted to kill Todd Gilbert. So I apologize. I just want to make sure everyone understands.
No, that's clear. Yeah, thank you. So Todd Gilbert was a former Speaker of the House. And that exchange, so for the background for your listeners, it all started because Jay Jones was angry that Todd had said something in memory, nice words in memory of a Democrat delegate who had served 30 years in the General Assembly. He recently passed away. And Jay Jones wrote by his own hands that what he wanted to do is piss on the graves of his political opponents. He was literally angry that a Republican had dare say something nice in remembrance of a Democrat. And that's when he started getting this exchange that he wanted to put 2 bullets in the head of Todd Gilbert. And for me, Sean, when he talked about hoping to see Jennifer Gilbert's children die in her arms, this was not some hypothetical person that lived, say, out in California. He's met Jennifer. She's come to the General Assembly. She would come all the time. He's seen those children. Todd would bring them to the General Assembly and they would run down the hallways. So this is a real flesh and blood mom and their children. And this idea that somebody that is seeking this job to get a promotion as the top prosecutor, I think that's why Virginians are reacting. I think you're seeing this shift because it is now becoming a much more a test of your judgment and your basic sense of decency. I don't think we've ever seen anything like it. And now, obviously, we have breaking news that happened yesterday that a special prosecutor has been appointed by a judge in New Kent County to look into how he misled the court in New Kent County over his 116 mile per hour reckless driving ticket. So all of this is now swirling with Virginia voters. And I think they're recognizing this person is disqualified from serving as Attorney General.
I want to get to the special prosecutor in a second, but I just want to, you've added a lot of meat to the bone here. I mean, I think, look, I will be the first one to say I have told a bunch of jokes that have fallen flat. I've said stuff that was like, in retrospect, like, that was kind of inappropriate or mistimed. To your explanation, though, this is a guy who literally details what he wants to do to somebody. And I don't think people fully appreciated what you just explained. This wasn't like Todd Gilbert and Jay Jones had gotten into some kind of fight in the back room and whatever. He was like, Todd Gilbert, the Republican speaker, was actually trying to do something nice for a Democrat. And that was his reaction. Can you imagine if Todd Gilbert had done something to like an enemy?
Well, he wasn't even running against Todd. I mean, I can only imagine what he said about me. But yeah, to your point, this was not a joke. What set him on this angry text thread trail was exactly right. Him saying something nice about his opponent. Now, there was an exchange there that for me and my family story is particularly telling. There's an exchange here where this colleague is saying, Jay, stop this. You're literally hoping that Jennifer Gilbert's children die in her arms. And he said, yes. As I've told you before, it is only through pain that people move on policy. Part of why I thought that was so chilling when I read this, Sean, is, the Miyares family story fled communist Cuba. My mother fled with literally nothing. And I remember my mother's told me this. She said, in Cuba, the Marxists all thought they were the good guys. They all thought they were the good guys when they were inflicting pain on society, when they were arresting people in the dead of night, like they had arrested her brother, when they were nationalizing businesses, when they were taking away homes. They all thought in their mindset, we're the good guys. Even though we're inflicting pain on people, this is what we're doing, quote unquote, for the greater good. And you can see how chilling that is for somebody like myself that knows that family story, to see somebody in his own writing advocate for violence against children with this mindset that it is basically for the greater good. That's how, quote unquote, pain is how policy changes occur. That is simply a mindset nobody should have in any elective office, certainly not the office of Attorney General. And if Jay Jones was to apply to be a line prosecutor, not just in my Attorney General's office, in the 49 other states, he would not be able to pass a background check. Think about that.
Can I ask you this? Just forget Jay Jones being your opponent. If somebody said to you, and this was like, I know we unearthed these texts, they're a couple of years old, but if it was in real time, and somebody called and said, Mr. Attorney General, there's somebody who just said they want, if Jennifer Gilbert called and said, Mr. Attorney General, I just uncovered text. Somebody wants to do this to my husband and then wants to see my dead child in my hand. Would that, if this instance had occurred in real time, not been 2 years old, would that have been something that law enforcement would have taken action on?
Well, first of all, if they told me it was somebody who worked for me in the Attorney General's office, they'd be immediately terminated. But to your point, and I've had this question asked to me before, was there a law broken? Well, under Virginia law, under 18.2, our criminal statute, you're not allowed to communicate a threat over electronic means. It's a class 6 felony, punishable up to 5 years, 1 to 5 years in prison. The question here then is the jurisdiction. I have a lot of criminal jurisdiction in my office. The largest division is the criminal division. But in that section and area of the code, the jurisdiction would be in Norfolk, where the text messages were emanated from. That's where Jay Jones is from. And the Norfolk Commonwealth's attorney is a left-wing Soros prosecutor. So as you can imagine, I can't imagine they're even looking at this.
But is it a statute of limitations issue?
There are no felonies. Sorry, there are no statute of limitations for felonies in Virginia.
So
no,
if
statute
that
of limitations issue.
So that literally could, if I get where Norfolk is politically, but if that was any normal person, they would, I mean, forget that it's Jay Jones. That's what I'm asking. If it's a normal citizen in the Commonwealth of Virginia, that would rise to the level and someone would say, we're sending someone out on that. Yeah.
If this was in another area where you had, in Norfolk, you have a Commonwealth attorney who views himself as a social worker, not a prosecutor. He's very anti-police, anti-law enforcement. In most other areas in the state, you would have a Commonwealth's attorney that absolutely will look into this and probably impanel a grand jury or take it in front of a grand jury. So yeah, it's incredibly, it's an incredible moment when we think that we're discussing this in Virginia. But this is a little bit of, Jay Jones isn't a prosecutor; he's a politician. To your listeners, I referenced New Kent County. He got caught going 116 mile per hour on Interstate 64, one of our most crowded interstates in Virginia, in New Kent County. 4 people were in court the day he was sentenced. They were all going roughly the same speed. 3 of those 4 people.
And how fast was that?
160 miles an hour in a 70 mile per hour zone. So basically, he turned his vehicle into a cruise missile. And 4 people were in court that day going roughly the same speed. 3 of those 4 people got either a active or suspended jail time, and all of them got a suspended driver's license. The only person that got neither active or suspended jail time and never got their driver's license suspended was Jay Jones. He got a totally different deal than everyday people did, partially because he's a connected politician, is my guess. And he promised 1,000 hours of community service. That is the equivalent of 25 full-time 40-hour work weeks in a calendar year. He gave to the court that he did 500 hours for the NAACP and then 500 hours for an entity that was only identified in the court filing as Meet Our Moment. By you look at the document, it's clearly they're trying to give the impression that this is a nonprofit. Now we know the Meet Our Moment is Meet Our Moment PAC. It's Jay Jones' own PAC, and they've never been able to produce any documentation of what he did for 500 hours.
But just so everyone understands this, that's a political action committee. So he went to go work for himself doing political work.
Right. The person that he had sign that document with the judge literally is an employee that works for him. Literally is an employee. Yeah.
If it wasn't so out in the open, it would be funny. I mean, literally, I can't believe this is one of those moments where you're like, there's no one's going to buy this, are they? And then they did.
Yeah, they did. And it just goes to show you there's this sense with Jay Jones that the rules don't apply to him. Both the rules of decency by advocating violence against children, but then also here. He's also an officer of the court. He wasn't just a normal defendant, right? A reckless driving charge in Virginia is punished. It's a class 1 misdemeanor punishable up to 12 months in jail. So it was a serious charge. He hired an attorney. He is required under the rules of professional conduct to have all full complete candor with the court. You cannot deceive the court. You cannot have a omission with the court. You have to be completely honest. The Commonwealth's attorney in New Kent County has said, we never were told this was his PAC, and I would have never agreed to it. So you can read between the lines here. That Commonwealth's attorney has gone and requested a judge to appoint a special prosecutor. People have asked, well, why did they appoint a special prosecutor? Because they're a witness now in the case. Their Commonwealth's attorney was the one that negotiated this agreement, this verbal agreement with Jay Jones. They're now a witness in the case. So you have to have a special prosecutor come in and now investigate this. And for your listeners to understand, we've never had anybody seek the office of the Attorney General that wants to be the top prosecutor that's being investigated by a special prosecutor. We've never seen that. And by law, to do this job as Attorney General, you have to be a member in good standing of the Virginia Bar. Right. So this is now real questions whether he'll even be able to maintain his law license if he's convicted of a, say, class 6 felony.
So walk me back though, when you're in court, right? And they say, okay, you're going to do 1,000 hours of community service or whatever. And I go, yeah, I'd like to serve it with Meet Our Moment. Don't you? I mean, like if I said, I'm going to the Miyares Foundation for good people who have brown hair. Doesn't somebody, if it's not like the Boys and Girls Club or the YMCA, wouldn't you say, I'm sorry, what is Meet Our Moment? Like, I just, how does that happen without somebody saying, excuse me, what is that?
Yeah. So this is the way it is works. You will go to court. You'll reach some type of oral stipulation with the Commonwealth's attorney. They'll essentially delay the case for 12 months. They'll say, we'll come back in 12 months. We'll agree to do 1,000 hours of community service. You don't at that time have the judge dictate exactly the charity. The idea is we're going to come back to court in 9, 10, or 12 months, and you're going to prove to us you've done, or you'll certify that you've done 1,000 hours of community service. And so when they came back, he had 2 letters, one from the NAACP saying he did 500 hours of basically pro bono work, which again, no documentation, when you're an attorney, Sean, you track your hours in 7-minute increments.
I get billed. I know. I get those bills.
Right, you get it. Billable hours. So any attorney would be able to tell you, would immediately be able to produce their billable hours, even if it's pro bono, correct? Because some law firms require you, no matter what, if you're on the clock, you track your time. None of that was produced. It was a letter signed by an individual within NAACP saying Jay Jones has completed 500 hours of community service. The other half was simply a letter. The stationery said Meet Our Moment with a P.O. box in Norfolk. And it said that Jay Jones had completed 500 hours with Meet Our Moment, a group, I think, dedicated to civic engagement or something like that in Virginia. And so that is from a rules of professional conduct, and this is why now 2 outside groups have filed a bar complaint against Jay Jones. That would be not having candor with the court. That's the first, right? Misleading the court. I would argue he has misled the court and committed fraud upon the court, and that by providing this documentation, a possible forgery of a public document, right? You are representing something that is facially untrue. Again, zero documentation for the 500 hours. My team went back and looked. Meet Our Moment PAC actually has the social media account. In the year 2023, the year he officially did all this, there was one social media posting of one event they did of training future political leaders for 500 hours. That must have been a very long seminar, but it looked like it was a one day for 4 or 5 hours at event. So you could see that a lot of this just doesn't add up on that front. And at the end of the day, again, this goes to both integrity, candor with the court.
Yeah.
The new Commonwealth's attorney is an independent. He's not a Republican or Democrat. He's an independent elected Commonwealth's attorney. He has asked for the judge, obviously, to enter in the order, creating a special prosecutor. So what it tells me that now we have Jay Jones with everything else with his criminal, everything else with the text messaging scandal for violence against children, now has this criminal investigation as well. And again, if he's convicted, he very well could possibly have his law license suspended or be stripped of it. He'd be incapable of being attorney general. It would create a constitutional crisis. Nobody's ever tried to do this in Virginia history. It's really something remarkable to see.
Yeah, you answered my second question, but let's play this out for 1 second. Like, so the special prosecutor says, hey, you did 500 hours with the NAACP. You spent 500 hours with Meet Our Moment. Let's do the first one first. So he goes to the NAACP. I know what standard practices that, as you just described it, you show your billable hours, but at some point you think about what 500 hours is, right? I mean, just if you call it 48, just to keep it easy.
Hours to read for a year. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So at some point, is one or the other, either the NAACP going to have to prove that, like, hey, we looked at his time, or he gave us, here's the receipt of what he did, or is he like, is there any legal obligation beyond just saying it was 500 hours to actually show your work?
Yeah, you issue a subpoena. Most likely, a special prosecutor. You would impanel a grand jury. And then you would get subpoenas approved to ask for any and all documentation of the actual work. And you would then interview witnesses, right? Okay. You would interview the people
So they'd have to say, like, yeah, okay, that's what I'm getting at, though. Is if I said, oh, gosh, you know what? He called in. I wrote it down somewhere. I don't have it. Like, in other words, I guess what I'm getting at is I could BS my way through that and be like, you know what? He used to come in twice a day. I'd see him and I wrote it down. But, it wasn't. Like, is that?
I think the bigger function is the Meet Our Moment PAC. How in the world can the Political Action Committee show any evidence whatsoever? And listen, I'm not going to try to Monday morning quarterback what a prosecutor would do, but I know what in other investigations our office has done and other entities. Generally, what you do is you try to find and work with possibly a cooperative witness that's willing to talk and be upfront, and if not, you'll subpoena them. Now you have to. If you get put in front of a grand jury, you're testifying under oath and you can't lie. And so most people understand that they're interested in making sure they themselves aren't facing possible criminal charges. So that's essentially how you get people to talk, cooperate, things of that nature. And so I don't have any special knowledge of this, but you follow proper procedure, or what most people do in investigations. That's how you do it. Obviously, my office investigated Loudoun County, and we got most of our testimony in front of the grand jury when people were under oath, knowing they had to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's when we got most of the evidence that came out that were released in the grand jury report of what happened to Loudoun.
All right, so let me just play out the Meet Our Moment thing. Let's just say hypothetically, and whether it's Meet Our Moment or anyone else, that they can say, okay, we have actually documentation. We can show you he came in 500 hours. Here it all is. Blah 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 blah. Is there a second question there, which is, did they deceive the court as to what Meet Our Moment is? So even if he can say, I did all 500 hours, I did it, but I was trying to do community service and this was my own political action committee and therefore it doesn't, like, is that in itself a second question?
Well, definitely from an ethics standpoint, because the Commonwealth's attorney has been on the record saying he never agreed that he would be able to do it for his own PAC and that he would never have agreed to it. And so that was basically an omission by him. He did not have full candor with the court. It's a violation of Virginia Rules of Professional Conduct. I think it's 8.4. So yes, there's both the even separate the criminal side. Now he's going to have to go in front of a Virginia State bar panel and really answer hard questions whether he can keep his law license. And again, you have to be licensed with the Virginia bar to even be attorney general. It's unlike any other office in the state at the state level.
So in theory, what would happen? Would there be another election in Virginia? I mean, I don't want that to happen.
It would be. I would have to research that, but if for some reason Jay Jones got through, it would create a bit of a constitutional crisis where there would have to either be a question of a judge ruling, like a writ of mandamus, where he's no longer able to do the job, and so it really creates a bit of a, nobody's ever anticipated this because nobody's ever been so brazen to have done this and then be under active criminal investigation while running for attorney general. And then on top of that, the violent text messages as well. So I know there was a bar complaint against Jay Jones over the violent text messages as well, apparently. So by all objective measures, this is somebody that doesn't have the judgment or the wherewithal. And think about this, Sean. We have seen since the Charlie Kirk assassination this sense that political violence should have no place in our society. We condemn it because Charlie Kirk wasn't murdered over the Second Amendment. He was murdered over the First Amendment. People didn't like his ideas. He had no real power. He wasn't an elected official of any sort. He just had the power of ideas. The idea that you would have people in our society that want to silence ideas you disagree with violence. And then you have somebody who's running to be the top prosecutor in the state, not just violence against Todd Gilbert and his wife and his kids, but he apparently also told a colleague, this also came out, that he hoped to see cops die because maybe they would change how they do policing. That goes back to this idea that pain can be somehow justified if change occurs. But to literally tell somebody you want to see cops die tells me Jay Jones has never once gone to an end of watch funeral for an officer that has died in the line of duty, because it is the single hardest thing I've done as attorney general. It is always gut wrenching. And whenever you sit there at the end of the watch ceremony and over the intercom, they'll call out the officer's name and badge number 3 times. And 3 times, Sean, there's total complete silence. And then it ends with, your watch has ended. We now have the watch. It is bone chilling. You will never, once you've gone through an end of watch ceremony, you stood there with a casket has come in. I can't imagine somebody with a worldview that literally has told colleagues he hopes to see cops die. And because of all his other scandals, that hasn't gotten probably nearly as much attention as some of the others, but it is still shocking to have seen it. It is why both the Fraternal Order Police, the Police Benevolent Association, every major law enforcement entity in the entire state has asked Jay Jones to drop out of this race. Not just endorse me, saying they will not serve with him. They will not work with him as attorney general. That is shock. That has never happened in the history of Virginia.
The interesting thing about the through line that you keep talking about, people need to go, that Jay Jones saying that people need to go through pain, is I'm sure as a prosecutor, people come to you and say, Mr. Attorney General, look, I may have even done this, but look, here's the situation. I was under duress. Like, a guy who has no empathy and has no understanding of what could go through is not somebody that I want. I mean, look, I'd say I'm pretty tough on crime, right? I know you're pretty tough on crime, but there are moments where you need that degree of empathy or understanding in a situation. It sounds like this guy literally has no feeling in him.
Well, I can't speculate on, I'm not going to speculate where he is psychologically. This is what I can say. In this role, you have to have so much compassion because you meet with moms that have literally lost a loved one. And Sean, there is no cry like the cry of a mother that has lost her child. It stays with you. They will always feel like there's this empty chair, this empty part of their heart that's been cut out of them. How can he empathize with somebody in that regard? How can he meet with a human trafficking survivor? So many of them are minor children. And we have an anti-human trafficking task force in the Attorney General's office. We're part of interagency with our federal partners. That's a huge space that we're in. We have a huge anti-human trafficking summit we do every year. We bring in survivors that have been trafficked as young as 12 years old. How in the world could he ever meet with somebody that's been the victim of such unimaginable violence as a child, that is a survivor, that's on the path to redemption? And now the whole world knows this guy's actually wished for violence. It's a little bit why, Sean, I was campaigning this past weekend at the JMU ODU game, and I had a mom come up to me who said, she's like, I'm a Democrat. I'm actually voting for Abigail for governor, but I'm voting for you. I think you are competent, but more than so, she's like, I don't want to see Virginia become the laughing stock of the country. Because if we were to some reason elevate this guy, we would be the butt of almost every joke about everything wrong with politics. And so that's a little bit of my closing message is, Virginians, we could do better. We could say no to this, because this can't be seen as a permission slip. If somehow he's able to win, it becomes a permission slip for every other left-wing person that wants to run for any office, saying, you know what? That guy was able to win. Why not me? And so if your listeners, and I know you're coast to coast, if they want to stop this, they just go to standwithjason.com. They could say no to this type of rhetoric about violence against children and our political opponents. It's say yes to me, to support me, to get me over the finish line, because we're in a great position to win and to retire Jay Jones back to the private sector forever.
You know, I think I follow Virginia politics fairly close. The discussion that you and I have had about like his speeding and what he did, and the all of these intricacies about the PAC, the lack of accountability, the Commonwealth attorney, I don't think that I've heard the extent of it until you just said it now. Right.
I mean, the legacy media, and I know this doesn't shock you, Sean, but the legacy media, I love the Washington Post when they say democracy dies in the darkness, but there's so much they have not covered about this. And I've often said media bias is not what you cover. It's what you choose to minimize or you choose to ignore. It's why you decide you're going to be a gatekeeper and you're going to prevent this. And that's why, candidly, we've had to be so aggressive on communicating to voters through paid media, because we can't count on the legacy media to do this. And you and I both know if Jay Jones had an R next to his name, if he's a Republican, he would be treated totally different right now by a lot of legacy media outlets, because, the New York Times would be running front page stories about how, this is a reflection on decency in politics. And so it is astonishing for me how many of the Virginia Democrats have continued to say, you know what, we decry violent political rhetoric. But Virginians, we continue to say, vote for a man who's a politician, not a prosecutor, to be the top prosecutor who's advocated for violence against children. Think about this. It's really astonishing to see.
It actually, I mean, the more that we talk about it, it does blow my mind that it's not like he wants to run for the House of Delegates, which he did. But like, you literally want to prosecute people. And when you find out that somebody did these abhorrent things, you mentioned paid media. Obviously, you're running a campaign. I'm sure you've done some polling. It seems like the race really shifted when the text came out. Is that the number one issue right now that's driving voters? You anecdotally are sharing that story about the woman that came up to you at the game. It seems to me, what I see, that's really where not just the shift in your race, but all the way to the lieutenant governor's race, the governor's race between Winsome Sears and Abigail Spanberger. Is that when you talk to your team, is that where the movement is when people really find out about the text?
Yeah, I mean, they are. It's whenever I go out, whenever I talk to people, I mean, Jay Jones has essentially canceled almost all of his public appearances, all of his media appearances. He doesn't want to take media interviews. I know this doesn't shock you, Sean. So he's kind of tried to run a campaign by not even talking to voters. That's the opposite of what we've been doing. That is something we're saying, and it actually is a big question for, say, Abigail Spanberger. Would you hire Jay Jones to be in your cabinet knowing this? If the answer is no, then why are you asking Virginians to hire him to be the top prosecutor in the state, someone who's advocated for violence against children?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a telling moment in her debate with Abigail where she basically tried to dodge the question and just said, every voter's going to have to make their own decision.
Yeah, but she had no problem endorsing the guy. I mean, it was funny. She doesn't want to talk about it, but she was proud to endorse him. So when he was cool before the text came out, but now it's like, I don't want to talk about it. I got two more things I want to talk to you about. One came out that's important for Virginia. There's this New York Times story that came out that said that Virginia Democrats want to call a special election, which, lo and behold, the lieutenant governor's Winsome Sears, that would get her off the campaign trail. But they want to pass redistricting, Well, how is that? I didn't understand. I didn't realize that in Virginia, the governor's not even part of this.
Right. So here's what happened. When I was in the House of Delegates, I helped to champion a nonpartisan redistricting commission. It passed with bipartisan support. The way amendment works in Virginia, it never goes to the governor's desk. It passes the House and the Senate. Then there's an intervening election of the House, and then it has to pass the House and the Senate again. Then it goes to a ballot referendum to voters. So it's hard to get an amendment to the Constitution. It went to the voters back in 2020. It passed by 30 points, overwhelming majorities. Politicians are going to pick pick their constituents. It's a nonpartisan redistricting commission. That's what drew the lines in for the House of Delegates, the state Senate, and Congress. Now they're trying to basically overturn the will of the voters that just 5 years ago, because they view this as a way in a partisan power grab to try to pick up at least, I'd assume, one, if not two, congressional seats. I think it's shocking. I think it's breathtaking that they think so little of the voters of Virginia that they're going to try to pull a Gavin Newsom, as they say. And so, yeah, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to pick up two congressional seats. And I think we have 4 Republican congressmen and women from Virginia. I think they would probably try to at least take out 2. If not, they could possibly take out 3, depending how they draw the lines.
Unbelievable. All right. The last thing I want to ask you about is what they call House Joint Resolution 1, Senate Joint Resolution 247, that would amend the Virginia Constitution to allow for unrestricted abortion through the 3rd trimester and take away some parental rights. How that doesn't seem to have gotten a ton of attention in Virginia in the lead up. But explain, if you can, what the impact of that would be and how that is that the similar way.
Well, that's a little bit more of a hypothetical. That would not be on the ballot this year. That's not on the ballot this year. If it passes, and it'd have to pass next January, it would be on the ballot in November 2026. But most people view that as essentially getting rid of parental notification and any restrictions whatsoever. But it has to pass the General Assembly again, and we're having an intervening election right now. So we could have an election for the House. The last numbers I saw was that the generic ballot on the House races was tied. So I think there's just that's a huge hypothetical whether that's even going to be able to get to the voters.
But in each of those cases, the redistricting in this, if they can take control or maintain control of the Virginia House of Delegates and the Senate, which is not up for re-election right now, that would then give them the ability in January 15th, I think it is, when they go back to session.
Pass it, yeah. And then
and that's the same thing in redistricting.
Right. Well, what makes the redistricting particularly so shocking is that they already had the General Assembly met and was out of session by the end of February. To call back into a special session right before October, to be able to claim that you had an intervening election, right? And the reason why the idea is that voters know what's at stake as well, right? When they're going to go vote. This was not something a lot of Virginia voters, several 100,000, have already voted. They didn't know when they went to go cast their ballot that the Democrats were looking to essentially repeal nonpartisan redistricting reform. So there's a lot of questions, I think, about that amendment, the special session, moving forward. And it's going to be an interesting week next week for sure in Virginia. Not just the fact that it's the closing week, but that they're trying to get this in under the deadline before Election Day.
You know, that just blew my mind and sent off alarm bells. That's another reason when these guys have such big early voting as they pushed for Virginia. We missed the J. Joe scandal for a few 100,000 people. And you're absolutely right. I didn't even think of that. All of these people already voted, including, I mean, obviously, you know how I voted. But I mean, I think that for people who voted early without knowing that their House of Delegates member was going to play this critical role, that's actually a really good point. I'm glad you made it, because this just shows you when you have early voting that far out, this is what happens.
Yeah, I think that 45-day early voting in Virginia it's too long of a period, because you want your electorate to be properly informed of everything. And I have had people that have stopped me that have said they voted very early back in September and they regret their vote. And so that's always an interesting conversation to have. But But listen, we're moving forward. We look forward to getting this over the finish line and continuing to ask Virginians to rehire me to be the people's protector, to retire Jay Jones. If your listeners want to help, just go to standwithjason.com.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. All the best. And remember, if you know someone in Virginia, early voting is open. Get out there, bank that vote. Attorney General Jason Miyares, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. God bless.
You bet. All right, guys. I thought I followed Virginia politics pretty close because I live here. I vote here. I know Jason. I know Winsome. And I know John Reed. I know these people. That discussion, I don't know that you're going to hear anywhere else. The level of detail and specificity about what a bad guy this guy Jay Jones is. And it was so funny because Jason's right. The media is just like, we're not even going to discuss this. We're not going to talk. I mean, the idea that, think about this. The guy literally did community service at his own political action committee and nobody says a thing about it is unbelievable. Unbelievable. By the way, I got to tell you this, because if you remember in the show yesterday with the panel, I showed you how Jen Psaki went on and started to talk about Usha Vance and how she was probably needed to blink to get away with it, whatever. Well, the vice president actually responded to it. I want to play you what the vice president had to say. Go.
Former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki made some comments suggesting that your wife, the second lady, needed to be saved from you. How do you feel about comments like that being made while you're here with the second lady?
Oh, I think it's disgraceful, but of course the second lady can speak for herself. And I'm very lucky to have a wonderful wife, and I know, or at least I hope that my wife feels the same about me. But we are very lucky to have this journey, or I should say, I'm very lucky to go on this journey with a very loving wife. We're going to keep on serving the country together, and I'm honored to have Usha by my side on this trip in particular, but always.
Yeah, he class act there. By the way, I just can't believe there's no outrage from women that say, hey, that was really uncalled for, Jen Psaki. What a mean, mean person she is. And I know, I don't know how that reputation doesn't get out more, but just a mean, evil person. Somebody who would suggest that a couple like that, oh, she should get away from him. How dare she be involved in him? I mean, look, I know that Jen likes to present herself one way, but when you go back, she lied to the American people. It's unbelievable that she gets away with this narrative after what she has done and said about individuals, whether it's Biden or anyway, unbelievable. I appreciate you guys being with us. Thanks for ending the week. We've got a great column out on the White House renovations at SeanSpicer.com. Please go take a look at it. It's free, and share it with anyone. We've got a great show lined up for you next week. As I said, John Solomon, Chicks on the Right, Michael Knowles are all going to be here. Have a great weekend. Make sure you hit subscribe and notification because I got a great rant coming out over the weekend. I'll see you back here Monday. Thanks for ending your week with us. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.